Thank you for the introduction. Hello everyone, I'm very passionate about medication error prevention, so I'd like to make this presentation interactive. So please take a few seconds and think about a drug product that you are familiar or perhaps working with and write the name of the product on a piece of paper. So throughout the presentation, I'd like you to think about your product, and as we navigating through strategies to address potential medication errors with EUA products, think about the strategies that you can utilize to address potential medication errors with your product. Please note there will be time for questions at the end of my presentation, and I'll be happy to answer your questions. I will start my presentation by an overview of the role of DMAPA. Then I'm going to describe the medication safety considerations for EUA product design, container labels, carton labeling, and user interfaces to minimize medication errors. And finally, we will discuss examples of EUA product medication error case reports and approaches to medication error mitigation strategies. DMAPA resides under the Super Office of Surveillance and Epidemiology within the Center for Drug Evaluation and Research. DMAPA was created in 1999. DMAPA is the CDER lead for medication error prevention and analysis for drug and therapeutic biological products. Within DMAPA, we have about 60 safety evaluators with varied backgrounds, including pharmacists, nurses, social scientists, and engineers, who are each assigned to specific therapeutic area. Safety evaluator covers all aspects of the product development from pre-market to post-market for products in the assigned therapeutic area. The DMAPA mission is to increase the safe use of drug products by minimizing use error that is related to naming, labeling, packaging, or design of drug product. DMAPA is involved in conducting safety assessment of EUA products used to treat or prevent COVID-19. We conduct safety assessment of the EUA products, labels, labeling, packaging, and product design, and this will be the focus of my presentation today. We also review medication error reports for EUA products and act when needed. We conduct safety assessment of the proposed proprietary name for EUA products, and we review Dear Healthcare Professional letters for EUA products. Medication error is any preventable event that may cause or lead to inappropriate medication use or patient harm while the medication is in control of the healthcare professional, patient, or consumer. As you see in this figure, we can see where adverse drug events may result in non-preventable harm and where the medication error results in no harm. But where both intersect is preventable harm, and that's where our focus in DMAPA lies. The recommendations in FDA guidance document titled Safety Considerations for Product Design to Minimize Medication Error apply broadly to the development of drug and biologic products. This guidance provides a set of principles for using a systems approach to minimize medication errors related to product design and container closure design, and thus enhance patient safety, which is also applicable to EUA products for COVID-19. Understanding product medication use process is crucial to minimize medication errors. Labeling, packaging, product design, and nomenclature are key elements that influence medication use. To identify how medication error might occur, a complete understanding of how the drug will be used is necessary. Medication errors can occur during any stage of medication use process. To understand the medication use process, you need to think about all major steps involved in medication use. To understand the EUA medication use process, we need to understand who will prepare and administer the EUA product, where the product will be used, and how the end users will interact with the product. As we are going through these questions to understand the medication use process, think about your product that you wrote it down at the beginning of the presentation and try to answer some of these questions. So let's start. Who will prepare and administer the EUA product? Who are the end users? Are there multiple user groups? What critical task must the end user perform? Is extensive manipulation or cognitive processes required to use the product? In what environment will product be used? What environmental factors need to be considered? How are drugs stored and obtained in that environment? Are there similar products used in the environment? Understanding the EUA product environment of use, where the product is intended to be prepared and administered, is important. Environmental factors influence medication use within a setting of use. For example, distractions, interruptions, noise, tools, lighting. Other considerations for EUAs for COVID-19 is related to pandemic healthcare environment, such as what is described in a pandemic as a pandemic nursing care in this article. By pandemic nursing, I'm referring to pandemic-related work conditions that was changed during the COVID-19 pandemic. The challenges related to the personal protective equipment, long shifts, and changes in regular routines, which places a tremendous stress on nurses and healthcare providers. To understand how the end user will interact with drug product, we need to understand the drug product user interface. And by drug product user interface, we refer to all components of product with which the user interacts throughout the medication use process. For a drug, the product design and user interface includes product active ingredient, strength, dosage form, product storage and handling, container closure used to package the product, the label affixed to the container closure, secondary packaging such as outer cartons or overlaps into which the container closure is placed. It also includes information that describes the dose, preparation, and administration of the product. For EUAs, this information is available in the EUA fact sheet for healthcare providers. Therefore, how a user locates and interprets this information, which is necessary to use the EUA product, is critical. To assess whether the product user interface is optimized, we need to ask ourselves questions such as, are the critical information needed to prepare and administer the product clear? Is the information on the EUA fact sheet for healthcare provider is consistent with the EUA product container label and carton labeling information? How the EUA product is prepared, 2 steps or multi-step dilution process? Is it a single product or multiple drug products that need to be put together before administration? How the EUA product is packaged? Are there multiple vials needed to prepare one single dose? Or multiple packaging presentations for the same EUA products will be available at the same time. Now that we have a good understanding about a medication use process for EUA products, we will be reviewing EUA product medication error case reports and discuss approaches how to mitigate some of these errors. As a part of the EUA, the prescribing healthcare provider or their designee is required to report medication errors, serious adverse events, and deaths to FDA MedWatch within 7 calendar days from the onset of the event, as outlined in the fact sheets for healthcare providers. FDA uses this information to determine if additional regulatory action is needed to address the reported events. The first example we will discuss is EUA for Remdesivir. Remdesivir EUA was approved in 2 formulations for intravenous administration: Remdesivir injection 100 mg per 20 ml and Remdesivir for injection 100 mg per vial. The major differences between Remdesivir injection and Remdesivir for injections are: Remdesivir injection, which is a solution, is for use in adults and pediatric patients who weigh 40 kg or more. For pediatric patients weighing 3.5 kg to less than 40 kilogram, the remdesivir for injection, which is a lyophilized powder, should be used only. These formulations also differ in how each product is prepared and also in storage conditions. FDA received numerous medication error reports related to incorrect preparation, administration, and storage of remdesivir. Examples of remdesivir medication errors submitted to the FDA includes wrong formulation error, and the error describes a child weighing less than 40 kilograms receiving 1 dose of remdesivir injection instead of the recommended remdesivir for injection formulation. Wrong preparation error, where several doses of remdesivir for injection were incorrectly reconstituted with 0.9% sodium chloride instead of recommended sterile water for injection. The doses were incorrectly diluted in 5% of dextrose for injection and water instead of the recommended 0.9% sodium chloride. Incorrect storage type errors, where vials of remdesivir injection were left out of the refrigerator overnight for more than 12 hours and had to be discarded. Which approach would you take to help mitigate these errors? A. Revise the EUA fact sheet for healthcare providers for remdesivir. B. Revise the EUA container label and carton labeling for remdesivir. C. No action indicated because this is an EUA product. D. Issue a Dear Healthcare Provider letter. So I'll give you a few seconds to think about your answer. If you picked B, you picked the correct answer. D, issuing a Dear Healthcare Provider letter is also correct. By issuing Dear Healthcare Provider letter alone may not be sufficient to mitigate product selection errors. The most effective strategy is to revise the EUA product container labels and carton labeling to communicate information that is critical to safe use of EUA product throughout the medication use process. That's why B is correct answer. This is the approved remdesivir injection and remdesivir for injection container labels and carton labeling. As you can see, the two formulations are very well differentiated, and critical information such as stored refrigerated is on the primary display panel for remdesivir injection. The side panels of the carton labeling includes critical information about the preparation and administration. Additionally, a statement, pediatric patient must weigh at least 40 kilograms is also added to alert the provider about which formulation should be used in this population. The second example we'll be discussing is EUA for Bamlanivimab. FDA received several case reports that describes confusion about the Bamlanivimab preparation and infusion rate. So let's review these reports. Incorrect administration rate report, and the report describes that Bamlanivimab fact sheet for healthcare provider contains an error in infusion rate information. The table 1, recommended dilution and administration instruction for Bamlanivimab, describes 200 ml per hour as a minimum infusion rate, but it states the agent must be infused over at least 60 minutes. Also, incorrect preparation error, and that report describes that Bamlanivimab treatment under the EUA was diluted to 2.59 milligram per ml instead of 3.5 milligram per ml. And patient received 700 milligram of Bamlanivimab in a total of 270 ml. of sodium chloride instead of 700 milligram of Bamlanivimab in a total of 200 ml of normal saline. Since the case is referring specifically to the fact sheets, those fact sheet table 1, I'm sharing with you the table that they're referring to, and I would like to give everyone a few seconds to look at the table. As you're reviewing the table, note the column where volume of 0.9% sodium chloride to discard from a 250 ml of IV bag is, and also the last 2 columns where the minimum infusion rate and minimum infusion time is noted. I also shared the EUA carton labeling for you. I give everybody a few seconds to look at it. So now that you reviewed it and you had a chance to think about how to mitigate these errors, which approach would you take to help mitigate these errors? A, revise the EUA fact sheet. B, revise the container label and carton labeling. C, no action indicated because this is an EUA product. D, issue a Dear Healthcare Provider letter. And I'll give you a few seconds to think about which one you think is correct. If you selected A, revise the EUA fact sheet for healthcare provider, is correct. And as you can see, the revised table 1 is significantly different than the previous table. It clearly has the maximum infusion rates and minimum infusion time noted. Also, note that no longer user needs to discard or remove the normal saline from the bag, which makes the preparation less complex. So the third example that we'll review is EUA for Casirivimab and Imdevimab. FDA received several case reports about EUA for Casirivimab and Imdevimab product label confusion. A case report stated that instead of receiving the first dose of the Moderna COVID-19 vaccine, 44 adults 77 years and older at a West Virginia clinic received intramuscular injection of Casirivimab, a monoclonal antibody EUA product. The article published in the Washington Post states that the packaging, the container label, and carton labeling was identified as a root cause for these errors. The contributing factor for this product mix-up error is lookalike vials and packaging. As you can see in these images, both products are similar in size and has a red cap. Also, the case report describes similar shipping boxes. Additionally, noting that the name of the antibody is missing, instead lists the product code number REGN 10933, which made it harder to identify the product within the vial. Which approach would you take to help mitigate these errors? A, revise the EUA fact sheet for healthcare providers. B, revise the container label and carton labeling. C, no action indicated because this is EUA product. D, issue a Dear Healthcare Provider letter. And I give you a few seconds to think about your answer. And the answer is B. Revising the container label and carton labeling to properly identify the product is the most appropriate strategy to mitigate this type of errors. FDA also received several case reports about Casirivimab and Imdevimab that describes wrong preparation and wrong dose errors. Let's review the description of the errors. The first case report states that they draw up 2 vials of Casirivimab and 2 vials of imdevimab into the same syringe prior to injecting to the diluent bag. And they attribute a similarity in appearance of the packaging vials of EUA, Casirivimab, and imdevimab product as a root cause for this error. And this wrong dose error describes a case where incorrect amount of antibodies were prepared and administered to the patient instead of the EUA dose of 1200 milligram Casirivimab and 1200 milligram of imdevimab. These are the container labels for Casirivimab and imdevimab that they are referring in this case reports. As you can see, they look very similar. So which one you think it's Casirivimab and which one you think it's imdevimab? So the only way I can tell them apart is the product identifier on the side panel, the REGN 10933 and REGN 10987, which tells me that the set on the right is Casirivimab and the one on the right side is imdevimab. So let's also review the carton labeling. I'll give you a few seconds to think about which one is Casirivimab and which one is imdevimab. Let's see if you got it right. Now that you had the opportunity to review the container label and carton labeling that they referred in this case reports, I would like to share the strategies used to mitigate product selection errors with Casirivimab. These are the container labels and carton labeling that includes stickers and the sticker has the antibody name along with the product strength and NDC number. Note also barcode was added. You should also note the strengths are well differentiated by using a different background color. And the revised EUA labels also look different. Note that critical information such as the product name, the product strength, and NDC number, they all are included on the container labels and carton labeling for the revised EUA. In addition to revising the container label and carton labeling for EUA for Casirivimab and imdevimab, which approach would you take to help mitigate wrong dose errors? A, revise the EUA fact sheet for healthcare providers. B, issue a Dear Healthcare Provider letter. C, revise the product packaging. D, revise container label and carton labeling. And I give you a few seconds to think about your answer. And the answer is C. In addition to revising the container label and carton labeling, revising packaging to include the appropriate numbers of vials to prepare a dose will improve the product user interface. So the dose pack is the new packaging presentation of Casirivimab with imdevimab. This was created to mitigate dosing errors. And the dose pack essentially is a plastic bag that contains cartons of EUA, Casirivimab, and imdevimab products to make 1200 milligram of Casirivimab and 1200 milligram of imdevimab. It also includes a one-page informational document. The carton in the dose pack may vary in appearance and the number of cartons in each dose pack. However, it includes the correct amount of each antibody needed to make up one complete treatment dose. So in summary, the key points that I would like you to remember is that understanding the EUA medication use process is crucial to mitigate potential medication errors. Consider end users, environment of use, and user interface for your EUA product. Use analytical methods from early stages of product design to help anticipate potential use-related medication errors, identify need for packaging design modifications, and ensure such modifications do not introduce unintended consequences. EUA product container labels, carton labeling, and packaging should communicate information that is critical to safe use of EUA product throughout the medication use process. And this brings us to the challenge questions. Which of the following is the Division of Medication Error Prevention and Analysis role in EUA products? A. DMAPA reviews container labels and carton labeling for EUA products for COVID-19. B. DMAPA reviews the medication error reports for EUA products for COVID-19. C. DMAPA reviews the proposed priority name for EUA products for COVID-19. And D. All of the above. I'll give you a few seconds to think about your answer. So if you choose all of the above, you are correct. The second challenge question is as follows. The most effective strategies to address use-related medication errors should focus on end users and environment of use. Is the statement true or false? And I'll give you a few seconds. False, because the most effective strategies should focus on improvements to the design of drug product user interface. A well-designed user interface facilitates the end user to correct actions and prevents or discourages actions that could lead to medication errors. This concludes my presentation. I would like to acknowledge Blaine Grout, an ORISE fellow at FDA, who helped research the materials for this presentation. Thank you for your attention. I hope you found the presentation useful, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kolejian, for your presentation. And we have several questions for you. And we encourage our audience, if you have questions, to enter them into the Q&A chat pod. With that, we'll get started right now. Our first question is that, is there an FDA guide on errors and the strategies to mitigate errors?
Thank you for the great question. Yes, we do have several guidances that will help you to mitigate medication errors. I did refer in my presentation about safety consideration for product design to minimize medication errors that you can refer to. We also have a draft guidance, and the draft guidance that is published and it's available on the public available to the site. It's for specifically for product container labels and carton labeling designed to minimize medication errors. And the draft guidance focuses on safety aspects of container label and carton labeling design. And it does provide specific recommendations for critical elements of product container labels and carton labeling. And I do encourage you to refer to this guidance as you are designing or thinking about strategies to prevent medication errors with your product. Thank you.
Great, thank you for that answer. And we have another question for you. Will your office, the Division of Medication Error Prevention and Analysis, review promotional materials or complaints on promotional materials?
Thank you. Our office, there's a specific office that does review the promotional material. So if there is a specific question related to the medication error aspect of it, certainly we can maybe consult it and review the material.
Okay, great. And our next question is, noting FDA allowed proprietary name for an EUA product, what is the process for an EUA product proprietary name request?
Thank you for the great question. So if you are planning on using a proprietary name for your EUA product labeling, our advice is that you submit the proprietary name request to the IND so we can review it without holding up the EUA submission. Please note in your product proprietary name request, your intent for using the proprietary name for your EUA, and we'll assess it and get back to you on it. Thank you.
Okay, great, thank you. So you referred to the FDA guidance, safety considerations for product design to minimize medication errors, and that focused on product design and container closures. Does FDA have guidance on designing container labels for EUA products?
Thank you, excellent question. We do not have a guidance on designing container labels for EUA products. However, we do have, as stated in the previous question, that we have a draft guidance safety consideration for container labels and carton labeling designed to minimize medication error guidance. And the information in this guidance is applicable to EUA product container labels. And I stated before, as you are designing your EUA product label, consider the critical elements that we discussed in the draft guidance. And thank you.
Okay, great, thank you so much. Our next question is for you, obviously. Healthcare providers are mandated to submit EUA drug product medication error reports to the FDA. How can sponsors receive a copy of the medication error reports?
Thank you, good question. In response to COVID-19 pandemic, FDA launched the FDA Adverse Event Reporting System, in short, FAERS public dashboard for COVID-19 EUA products. And the dashboard provides weekly updates of the reports submitted to FAERS for drugs and therapeutic biologic products used under EUA, which is a database you can publicly search all the information and see all the submitted reports. Additionally, individual case reports can be obtained by sending a FDA Freedom of Act request. Thank you.
Okay, great. Very helpful. And we have another question for you. Some of the pictures in your presentation included products that appear to be labeled for investigational use. Does FDA allow EUA products to use products that were previously labeled for investigational use? Are we encouraged to develop labels specifically for EUA products?
Thank you. Again, great question. As you seen in my presentation, the investigation drug labels may not have the critical information needed on container label and carton labeling. And by critical information, I'm referring to the, for example, product name, strength, and other information that is critical to use the EUA product. Because critical elements are important to identify the EUA product, And also this information is important to correct preparation and administration of EUA product. We encourage that you develop labels specific for EUA products. Keep in mind that the EUA drug product users are relying on this information on your EUA container label, and optimized EUA product user interface, which includes the EUA product container labels and carton labeling, will communicate the important information necessary for the end user to correctly prepare your EUA product and administer. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. And I think we have time for one more question. What is the best strategy to prevent EUA medication errors?
Thank you. Each product has a unique user interface, and understanding your product's user interface is crucial to develop appropriate strategies to prevent medication errors. So when you are thinking about the strategies to prevent medication errors with your product, consider the user interface and how the user will interact with your product throughout the entire medication use process. And as you are thinking about all the stages of medication use process, think about the critical information that the user will need to appropriately to prepare and administer your product. As you are thinking about it, this will help you to develop appropriate strategies to prevent medication errors. Also, reviewing medication error reports is important. As you are reviewing medication error reports and analyzing it, you will understand the root cause for the error, and this will help you additionally to specifically design strategies to eliminate the errors you see in the report. And I hope that answered your question. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for your time presenting and taking questions for the audience. And with that, I'll pass it over to Renu to introduce our next presenter.
Thank you, Lisa.